what do you make of the general state of cable news? Because it gets a lot of crap from everybody all the time. And I'm not talking about you specifically, but in general, you say cable news and people start freaking out, right? So what do you make of the general sense of cable news?
Well, I think it's, obviously it's an easy target, right? The media is always an easy target. And so when you're in that easy target that happens to be on 24 hours a day, you're going to be an even bigger target. And when you're on and there's no script there, then you're an even bigger target because we're human. And sometimes, many times, most times, there are no words in that box to read when you're in cable. Now, if you're on broadcast, it's a whole different story. If you're doing an evening broadcast in national or local, everything is scripted for you. You read, if you're doing a 30-minute newscast, maybe you read at the most 5 to 7 minutes of copy, right? You're saying, oh, the big story out west was the flooding, and blah, 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 blah. Dave Rubin joins us with the latest. Dave, what do you know? Yeah. Boom. And then that's it. And then you go, thank you, Dave. And now let's talk about the president's, reform on gun control.
And you even talk like this. It's a very specific way that you have to talk.
Words are for you and blah, blah, blah. And all you're saying is thank you. And the most that you'll say is, incredible report, Bob. Wow. Right? And that's it. Right. When you're cable, you're saying, no, listen, that's not right. The facts aren't there. Hold on. Let me get my information. Well, the president said back in such and such and such, and then other people are screaming, right? And then you're like, wait, now you talk. Wait, now you talk. And so there's a lot more room for error. There's a lot more people talking back and forth. It's a lot more interesting to watch. So of course people are gonna, we're gonna be a target. And sometimes deservedly so, most of the time, not really, because we just happen to be on television in very real moments a lot of the time.
Yeah, so to that point, how often, because I right now in this very second, I have an IFB in my ear just so that I can hear you because it's the nature of how we're doing Skype. I don't think you have one in, right? You're just doing the Skype off the computer. But one of the things, okay, we have proof. But one of the things I hear all the time, and I think I probably thought this too, is that when you're on cable news or you're on television in general, there's someone in your ear always barking orders at you. How often is that actually true for you, that you're doing your broadcast and someone is actually telling you what to say? And I'm not talking about the technical stuff, cut to commercial. I mean,
sometimes people tell you what to say, and sometimes you're like, amen, thank you. Sometimes people are correcting you. Yeah. Sometimes people are like, they're your other ears, they're listening to the guest, and then someone will say, well, it's gonna affect the Fourth Amendment, and then the producer will say the president never mentioned the Fourth Amendment, and you'll say, hey, listen, the president never mentioned the Fourth Amendment, right? Or sometimes you'll say it was an unalienable right, and then the producer will say inalienable, right? So there are little things. Or I always like to tell people that, well, this recent example is we go on the air. Everything is ready in the show, the open is scripted, right? And it's like, blah, 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 Donald Trump is at a rally in Iowa, and this is CNN Tonight, I'm Don Lemon, right? And then all of a sudden, introduce, now let's go to our panel. Dave Rubin is here, Ryan Liz is here, and, Kayleigh McEnany's here. So panel, and then someone will say, stop, and I'll go, oh, stand by. They'll say, and then they'll roll the breaking news animation. You're like, uh-oh, okay. And they'll go breaking news. And you go breaking news. And they'll say, there's been a plane that's been diverted. You say, there's been a plane that's been diverted. And then as you're talking, they'll say, okay, now go with prompter. And so all of this stuff, you're talking, and then you look up and they say, okay, joining us on the phone, and they'll say, Bob Williams. You'll say, Bob Williams from Nebraska. And so and sometimes you'll be in the middle of a sentence and people will talk to you. So it does happen. People at home think you're stupid, but actually you're not that stupid. You're just like, whoa, what, So that's it.
And that's why I wanted to ask you that, because I think there's this sense out there that you're getting orders of what you can and should say. And what you're really saying is it's technical stuff. It's stuff because we have a live program and maybe they're fact checking you, but they're not being like, Don, you better tell them.
Or saving you.
Or saving you.
Or saving you by, wait, whoa, explain what you meant by that. And you're like, oh, whoa, what I meant was, because someone might misconstrue it, but it doesn't really, everything gets misconstrued. And everything now gets taken out of context. Like I can say, look, Dave, let's not talk about the gay thing, right? And then someone will just take that and say, oh, Don Lemon's ashamed of being gay. And you're like, no, that was like a half a sentence in an entire conversation that we had. And then it builds upon itself. and it keeps building. It's like a wildfire. And by the time it gets to the end, it has absolutely nothing to do with what you said. And then people believe it because of social media. It's really kind of ridiculous. I want to explore that somehow.
Yeah.
I think we should investigate that.
Well, it's something that we've been talking about here a lot, because one of the things that I'm seeing all the time now, and unfortunately I see this more on the left, is people being misquoted all the time. And no matter what you say, and so that, it's a good segue actually, because I think you, in terms of the mainstream media people, you are the victim of this all the time. I mean, every time I open up Mediaite, Don Lemon says this, Don Lemon this, Don Lemon that.
Did you ever go back and look at the whole thing of what I said, and you're like, wait a minute, that's not what happened at all?
Well, Don, I don't have that kind of time to listen for context. You know, I mean, what do you know, I have things to do. But that's exactly what your point is, that they get you on the one-liner. They know that nobody's going to go back and, you know, watch the 2 minutes before, the 2 minutes after. So for you, how aware of that do you have to be? And how much are you thinking the whole time, I better not go there, even though it's what I really believe, or it's, you know, what I want to say?
Well, I'm aware a little bit, but I can't do that to myself. I don't want to censor myself that way, because then you're not authentic. And I think that, you know, whatever success I've achieved, I think it's been through authenticity. And so if I was worried about every single word and how it's going to be, of course you want to be smart, right? And you want to be buttoned up in a certain way, or have your facts straight. I don't want to do that. And so if you want to take me out of context, then that's your business. And I think for the most part, smart people, the viewers aren't dumb. They understand what's happening. And the stuff that happens online, especially like Twitter and all those, it doesn't usually translate to television. It certainly doesn't translate into ratings. And it doesn't translate into credibility. So, you know, it's wonderful that I work for a network and a boss who says constantly, ignore the noise. You guys are doing great. The network is doing great. Our story is great right now. Continue the momentum. Be yourself. Be smart. Keep moving, and don't even read. It doesn't even matter if we tweet or not, or we don't have to read it. It's amazing and wonderful. We're in a great spot right now on CNN, so we don't worry about that crap.
Right. It's kind of funny, because on the social media side, you know, like I could pick something like when you said the black hole thing during the plane thing. And, you know, you're on air for hours, you're talking about all of this stuff, you're just throwing out, you know, oh, somebody said it could be a black hole. Like, you weren't saying it's in a black hole, or like whatever it is. And then next thing you know, Don Lemon is trending and all that. So you really can just put it aside?
No, I mean, I can, because I've talked about this ad nauseum. The New York Times did a thing on it. It's not that you believe those things. We had a thing called crazy conspiracy theories that people were sending to us.
Yeah.
So one of those was that. It was a question from a viewer. That's it. I read the question from a viewer, and that was the end of story, and that took on a life of its own, but so be it. It made me famous, but it did not come from me. I'm not positing that. I'm saying, hey, look, this is what viewers are saying. They were also saying it was in a hangar somewhere that we mentioned that. They were also saying that it was flown, someone else took it and hijacked it. There were a number of different things that were said about it, all of which we talked about on social media. That one just happened to get picked up.
Yeah, you know, at the top of the show, I did a little piece on how I was saying we need mainstream media, but we also need online media, because I do believe we need both for different reasons and different corporate interests and all that. I think we need, look, as the online guy and the mainstream guy,
we need more honest online people. We need online people who will actually do their homework, who will call, who will not write an article off of someone else's article or off of someone else's opinion of what someone else did. Online people who actually saw the entire segment in context to do their job. Not just like lazy. People are lazy, and they just go, such and such, whatever. Yeah, he said that, and you're like, no, that's not. So it's kind of hard for those of us who are in more traditional media to chase all of those things down, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, you literally took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say, because I think at some point the online media was doing a lot of good stuff, getting to stories that maybe hadn't bubbled up to you guys yet, and yet somehow in the last year or two, there's so many trashy sites that are just waiting for not just the the on-air guys, but for politicians to just find any little thing that they can say and run with that, just so that they can get clicks. And they're no longer doing a service either.
It's what we call it clickbait. Mm-hmm. So we're at the point here at CNN where we realize that I'm clickbait. So if you just say Don Lemon, people are going to click on it.
Yeah.
So they will say Don Lemon and then anything. But what I wanted to say is, when you talk about online people, so have you ever worked for a traditional network? Well, you worked for Sirius, so that was, I would imagine that's pretty.
Yeah, that was corporate. That was corporate.
It is so rigorous here. Before I can say anything on the air as a fact or, present something, it's got to go through our fact checkers. It has to go through standards and practices, what our definition of, when we're talking about the guys in Oregon, what our definition of terrorism is, all of those things, how we confirm things. The other night when Natalie Cole died, everyone was reporting Natalie Cole died, but we couldn't get in touch with her publicist because the publicist was busy. Mm-hmm. And every time we called, the phone was busy. The email, I guess we could not report that. CNN would not report that until we heard from an official person. Online people don't have those, they don't have to climb those hurdles. Mm-hmm. And I think that's sad and missing because, listen, we don't have to be first. We just want to be accurate. And I wish the online people wanted to be more accurate than first or funny or opinionated.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And I feel like I sort of exist in between those two worlds, and I'm just trying to do what you're saying, which is be honest and have honest conversations. And even though I have one of these things in my ear, nobody's yelling.
What are they telling you now?
Nothing. They're saying you're doing a hell of a job. That's what they just said. So the other thing that I think is interesting about you is that you get heat from both sides. And I'm not talking about when they misquote you now. I'm talking about if you say something, for example, about Black Lives Matter. Are you taking a selfie right now?
I just wanted this I'm going to do when I post online. Go ahead.
Nice. So that you get equal heat from both sides. So if you take a Black Lives Matter, for example, there's a certain amount of racist people who will look at you as a black man and they're going to just say racist shit. It's just going to come no matter what. And then there'll be people, when you've said things that haven't been, sort of in lockstep with the movement, that'll say you're an Uncle Tom. And I'm only using that word because when I Googled you, it was one of the first words that came up. That Don Lemon is
to trademark that word, but go ahead.
Yeah, that Don Lemon is an Uncle Tom. But to me, it seems like you're usually doing good stuff when people on both sides are attacking you, and that's what you're getting all the time, right?
Well, yes, and the thing that here's the thing that when we talk about double standards and expectations of people, as a person of color, someone not of color, people don't expect you to be the spokesman for all white men, right? Or all
thank
white.
God. Yeah.
Right. They don't even expect you to be the spokesman for gay people.
Thank God.
But somehow there's this expectation of me to be the spokesman for black people or gay people, and I am neither. What I am the spokesman for is information and truth. And so if Black Lives Matter does something that is worthy of criticism, then it is my job as a journalist to give that criticism. Mm-hmm. Because no movement is perfect. Even the civil rights movement wasn't perfect and received its share of criticism. So as a black person in this position, the only one who is in prime time on a cable network, when people see that coming from me, they're like, how dare he? Well, I'm not daring, I'm doing my job. That is what I'm supposed to do. So, and if someone who is white sees me talking about Black Lives Matter in a way that's positive, then of course I agree with them. Yeah. So, I can't win. And so the point is not to be an advocate or someone who is, an activist. My point is to be a journalist. Yeah, I get there's racism, I get there's homophobia, I get there's sexism, but at the end of the day, what I'm giving is information. Or if I say, I just received information that, that the cop in the Michael Brown case is not going to be indicted. That word is going to come out. People who want him to be indicted are going to get upset and call me an Uncle Tom because it came out of my mouth. Yeah. And then 20 minutes later, when the guy comes out and says, there's no indictment, no one goes, oh, he was right. They just go, oh, he's covering that story. I can't believe him. So it's just, it is what it is. People take out their frustrations on the person who is in front of them, and I happen to be that person.
And do you find that a lot of it's odd that, like with the Uncle Tom stuff, that comes from people on the left, that they would want you, right? The people on the left, they should see you as an individual, except what they're seeing or what they're complaining about is that you should be this representative of Black America or whatever it is. I
often find that the people who are supposed to be the most tolerant are the least because they never consider that they, in fact, may not be because they think that everyone thinks like them. Yeah. And not everybody thinks like you. So, I find that, listen, I get it from all sides, but I find that the people who are most incredulous about things and many times the most vocal are liberals.
Yeah.
Yeah, and many times for me as well, African Americans, because they're looking at me regardless of the facts. Even if the facts don't pan out, even if the evidence and all the investigations and all the autopsies show no hands up, don't shoot, I have to come on television and say, hands up, don't shoot. I can't do that. That's not what the evidence shows. So I have to say the evidence does not show that, so that never happened according to the evidence. I can't believe you sell out. And you're like, well, what do you want me to do, lie? I can't lie.
Right, and then that's exactly where they go, oh, it's because he's getting the information from his ear, which I think you've illustrated is actually not the case. Okay, so a lot of people have been asking me this on Twitter, and I thought you'd be the perfect person to pose this question to. The way the media frames certain things, so the way the media frames Black Lives Matter versus how the media is now framing this Oregon militia thing. And we don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of every little instance that's happening, but a lot of people were saying, you know, that the media is not calling these Oregon people, they're not calling them terrorists. And if this was a group of black people, or especially if this was a group of Muslim people, we would be calling them terrorists. And I was Googling the word terrorism, and you know, it talks about intimidation or violence, not and violence. And to me, it's a little hazy whether them taking this building where they had to use no force per se, and you know, apparently the building was just open, and yes, they had guns and it's federal property and all that, whether it's actually terrorism, and would the media be treating it differently if it was either black people or Muslim people?
You know, why are you falling into that trap, Dave Rubin?
Tell me why. Get me out of this trap. How about that?
So here's the thing. So I actually wrote an editorial saying that it was terrorism in my editorial for the Tom Joyner Morning Show. And so, you know, it was read by someone here at CNN, and they said, well, our definition of terrorism here at CNN is different, is that it has to be political. It is political.
It is political.
But it also has to have someone who has been hurt by it, like physically hurt. So it's not terrorism until someone is actually hurt or killed or what have you. And I think that's part of the definition here. But according to the law enforcement people I spoke to, if you are doing something for a political end or whatever that is illegal in that manner, then it is terrorism. So I have called it terrorism. I've heard other people call it terrorism. I don't know how other media organizations frame it, but here at CNN, I don't think there is a double standard about what's going on and what it is. Now, here's the thing. Do I know that it, you know, would it be different if it was Muslims or if it was black people? Yeah, of course. I live in America. I know that. In this particular case, though, I have to hedge it and say I'm not so sure, and here's why. Because it is in the middle of nowhere. It's 280 miles from Portland, Oregon, the next biggest city. Burns is, what, 30 or 80 miles away, and no one really knows where Burns, Oregon is, right? Mm-hmm. So it is basically a truck stop, not even a truck stop, a rest stop in the middle of nowhere. What the government is trying to do, the FBI is trying to do, is to avoid another Ruby Ridge and another Waco.
Yeah.
And so it is the middle of winter. Nobody's there. Nobody is in danger of being hurt. The best thing that these guys can do is be ignored. I hate that we even have to give them media attention because they're yahoos. They're not within their legal right for anything. So I think what they're doing now is perfectly fine. Let them sit there in the middle of winter and freeze their asses off, and fine. If you want to stay there in the middle of winter in that little crappy building, then that is your business. Yes, it is a federal building, and they are breaking the law. And at some point, they will have to take care of it. But I think at this point, I think they're actually doing the right thing. As far as the media reaction, I haven't seen any. I don't know anyone who's called it like a peaceful protest or what have you. It is what it is. It's people who are ignorant of the law, who have taken over a building, and they should pay the consequences when the time comes. But right now, I say ignore them.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to get what they want at the end of this.
They're not.
That's usually just not how these things work out.
And it's many of the people whose land was saved by the government helping them out years ago.
Yeah.
And now they want to reclaim it and get the money back, more money than was already given to them. They're just ignorant of the law. If this was a building that mattered in the middle of a city that mattered,
sure,
reaction would be completely different.
Sure, and there would be more direct threat to people.
There would be more of a direct threat, yes. But I do think that they're getting a pass because of their religion. They're not Muslim, because they're, you know, white, not African American. But I don't know how different the reaction would really be. I don't know, because it's a building that nobody cares about in a city, in a place that nobody really cares about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's only about 15 or so people who are actually in that building. It's not hundreds of people.
Yeah. They're running out of snacks, I heard. So this thing can't last that long.
They're idiots.